The Overwatch 2 hero roster is massive. With 37 characters and counting, it can be hard to know who to play, especially if you're new to the game. You see a lot of these newbies start playing the poster children of the game because they're not too familiar with the other characters, which has its pros and its cons. Pros: Tracer and Reinhardt are great heroes to learn, as they both have really good abilities and can pump out a lot of damage when optimized. Cons: there are much better picks than these poster children of the game, as you risk being team diffed if you're only able to play very simple, easy to counter heroes. In this video, I'm going to let you know who to play and why to play them, as it's a very important part of learning heroes, why you should play them. Starting off on tanks, some key heroes to avoid playing are Doomfist and Roadhog, as they're currently underperforming in comparison to the other tanks. A viable pick into both high and low elo teams is Junker Queen, as her most recent buff allows her to heal herself a fair amount each time her Jagged Blade, which is now easier to hit due to a hitbox buff, or Carnage hit an enemy whilst dealing a lot of damage. Her shotgun also does a lot of damage at the correct range, this being close but not too close to the enemy. You can get a lot of usage out of her ult too, as it does a lot of base damage, applies bleed and anti-heal, as well as launches you into the enemy backline, allowing you to pick off the supports and off DPS. The only real counters to this are Hack, Kiriko Suzu, and Ana's Sleep, but other than that, you should be pretty good going. Ultimately, the hero you should be playing depends on both yours and the enemy's team comp. Luckily for you, I have a video all about team comps on my channel, so make sure you check that out so you know who to play in what scenarios. If your team needs a more shield heavy tank, play Winston rather than Reinhardt or Sigma, as his shield is a full 360 dome and has 600 health which you can shoot through, and his secondary fire rate offers more range than Sigma's balls. Additionally, his ult is one of the most useful ults in the game, as it has insane knockback, instantly increases your health to 1050, and can do a bunch of damage to enemies if you're constantly hitting them, allowing your team to play objective whilst you push the enemies back into their spawn. Moving on to DPS, like I said earlier, Tracer is a very good hero to learn. Her dash and recall abilities offer her a lot of survivability in 1v1 fights, but she tends to fall flat in team fights due to the fact that she only has 150 HP. For this reason, I'm going to be recommending two heroes, the first being Mei. Now, Mei is quite a controversial hero. The enemy team hates her because of her ult and iceberg ability, and your tank hates her because of her wall and you stopping them from solo pushing the enemy team. However, she can be super useful in team fights. Her primary fire can't be deflected, so it instantly counters Genji, Sigma, and D.Va, and her secondary fire does really good range damage, especially if you're hitting crits. This can be deflected though, so be careful. Now let's talk about her ult. Similar to Reaper's ult, it has the ability to be a free win button, as it does a lot of damage and freezes enemies that are stuck in it, allowing your team to play practice range as long as the ult is up and the enemies are frozen. The second hero I'm going to recommend you start learning is Hanzo, as he's a very good ranged DPS with a lot of useful abilities. Sonic Arrow gives you wall hacks like Widowmaker's ult, granted it picks up any enemies in its radius, and Storm Arrow lets you kill enemies that start pushing you in the backline very fast. Even the tanks that push you and the supports at the back are in danger of being diffed by you. Now what a lot of people don't know about these abilities is that you can use them together, turning one of your Storm Arrows into a Sonic Arrow, allowing you to fire it a lot faster than normal. Hanzo's ult is also very useful, as not only does it deal a lot of damage, it forces the enemy team to play away from specific areas. This is what we call a cosmetic ult, as it's used to make room rather than to get kills. Either way, when you use this ult, you'll be helping your team out a whole bunch. Last but not least is supports, which are quite difficult to figure out how to play because each one of them are so unique and have such different abilities, but there are some that I recommend above the rest. The first one is Moira, especially if you're new to playing Overwatch, as you don't really have to aim with her. She has insane range, insane damage and healing outputs, and she has a lot of self-survivability, as her healing biotic orbs can heal herself as well as her team. Her damage beam, much like Mei's primary fire, can't be blocked, and her damaging biotic orb and coalescence, her ult, can go through enemy shields. But remember that Moira is a support and coalescence can heal teammates, so use it to rush the enemy team as a unit. She can now also fade whilst coalescence is active, allowing her to fall back quickly if she gets too eager on the attack. The second support hero I recommend is Kiriko, as her healing Ofuda can get teammates back up to stable amount of health from being in critical condition. Her teleport allows her to rush into the team fight and use Suzu to keep her teammates in the fight for longer if necessary, and her kunai have a lot of damage potential, doing 3 times the damage for a critical hit. Her ultimate is one of the most useful ults in the game at the minute, allowing for increased movement speed and fire rate in it. So naturally, this synergizes with a lot of friendly ults and abilities, such as Soldier's aimbot spot in Bastion's turret form. In conclusion, Overwatch's big hero roster can be intimidating at first, but just know that you should be focusing on learning maybe 2 or 3 different characters per role, with different abilities that can be used in different scenarios depending on how well your team is performing against the enemy team. A lot of the game revolves around counterpicking. It isn't the best idea to be playing Bastion into a Genji, as he can just deflect everything that you throw at him, which is why we play Mei into Genji, as he can't counter much of her arsenal. Hopefully this video has helped you decide who to learn and understand the abilities of some of the heroes and why we play them.